A key element of working with the moon is having that trust that if you are desiring something, if you are working on manifesting something and it's coming from a true place, from that intuition, from that love, you can trust that it is coming to you. And because our emotions are so fluid, it is that very, as water, we know that the tides are affected by the moon. It's the same within us. What changes do I want to make in my life? What do I want to manifest? All right, welcome back to another episode of Fully Blooming. This is going to be a really quick rundown of working with the moon. This is actually a requested episode. I've had a few people get in touch and say, how do I start to work with the moon? What does it even mean? What is the process? And I'm just going to give some really simple tips and explanations of kind of the whole process. So, as the majority of us probably know, the moon passes through two major phases. So it starts with the new moon and the full moon. So the cycle actually starts at the new moon. So this is when we can't see the moon in the sky. It is completely dark and you just won't be able to see it. The full moon is, of course, when the moon is at its peak. So it is we can actually see the full moon. It is fully illuminated in the sky. And most people are aware of this rather than the new moon, because actually, if you don't see the moon in the sky, you probably don't really think about it. And in between these two phases, if we start at the new moon, it's called a waxing phase. So from the new moon to the full moon, this is the waxing phase. This is when the energy is building. This is when the moon is becoming more illuminated. And once we reach full moon, the kind of highest peak of the energy, we then go into the waning moon. So that is when it starts to disappear and starts to become less illuminated and eventually brings us back to a new moon. So it's a full cycle, as you can see. And it works in between kind of 28 and 29.5 days. It's more or less, but you kind of have to check yourself, because the full moon and the new moon aren't going to happen at exactly the same time every single month, and neither will they happen at the same time of the day either. So I think we all assume, I definitely did, that if the moon is full, it is midnight on a particular night, and that's when it's full. But actually, that's just not the case. And it can be during the day or at any other time of the day. So if we wanted to start working with the moon, we can work with this kind of, let's say for ease sake, 28-day cycle. So if we start at the new moon, you might have heard that this is when we set intentions. This is when, because the moon isn't illuminated in the sky, we can start to think, okay, what do I want to build in this next 2-week period? What intentions do I want to set? What changes do I want to make in my life? What do I want to manifest? And you can kind of imagine it as you kind of plant the seed, and then it starts to expand as the moon starts to expand in the sky as well. And it's that energy of growth, of expansion. Whereas when we hit the full moon and the energy after the full moon to the new moon, this is more of a releasing energy. It's more of a kind of noticing what in the first 2 weeks you were trying to manifest, and actually what was limiting you, what was blocking you. Maybe it was your own beliefs, maybe it was your external conditioning. Just noticing, actually, why could I not do that thing in the 2 weeks? And I think it's easy to fall into a trap of self-blame, of, well, this didn't manifest in those 2 weeks. There must be something wrong with me, or what am I doing wrong? And that's simply sometimes just not the case. Of course, we all have our own blocks, we all have our own limiting beliefs, etc. However, if we fall into that trap, it can become a very negative spiral, and we actually won't work with the moon at all. So realistically, in the world that we live in at the moment, things usually, of course, some things do happen within 2 weeks, but usually things take time. They take a process. They take more learning. Maybe you're just not ready for that thing yet. And I think a key element of working with the moon is having that trust that if you are desiring something, if you are working on manifesting something, and it's coming from a true place, from that intuition, from that love, from that real place of authenticity and clarity, then you can trust that it is coming to you. And what is really interesting, because I think a lot of people just work with this 28-day cycle, the moon also works in a 6-month cycle. So, for example, if we have a new moon in Virgo, 6 months later, we will have a full moon in Virgo. And so then you could actually say that it's a 12-month cycle because it goes from new to full and then back to new. So you can use those 6 months to really plant that seed and then work and start making the steps to creating and inviting that thing into your life, right? And from my own experience, when I was really working with the waxing phase, the waning phase, the waning phase from the full moon to the new moon, I always think waxing, it's like removing, right? It's getting smaller, but no, it's the opposite. I always forget about that. I always get that mixed up. But when I worked with the waning phase at the very beginning, I did have a lot of this, oh my God, like I've got so much to release, and was really like putting a lot of pressure on myself. Whereas actually it's a complete balance, right? You have to work with both elements. If you are releasing something, you are also inviting something in. You don't want to create like there's the word chasm, like a void, right? If you're releasing, what are you inviting back in? Sorry. And if, as a basis of working with the moon, as I said, you can start setting intentions at the new moon. You can start noticing, hey, actually, my life isn't going in the direction I want it to. What would I really want to invite into my life? Maybe it's travel, maybe it's a new home, maybe it's a new relationship, a new career, or whatever it is. And it's also okay if you don't exactly know what you want to do or what you want to invite into your life right now. Using the moon, it's a real opportunity every 2 weeks to check in with yourself. And it doesn't need to be spiritual. It doesn't need to be woo-woo. You don't even need to look at what sign the moon is in at that time. You can simply use this as a little check-in. And that's why my evenings last year were called self-check-in evenings, because even though we were basing them around the moon, we were just simply using that opportunity and the energy of that time to check in with ourselves and be like, hey, how are we doing? Where are we at in terms of the steps that we wanted to take, the intentions that we set? And I think it's a really beautiful way of creating momentum in your life, because you know it's going to come around every 2 weeks. And whether you believe in astrology or you believe in energy, I mean, energy is everywhere. So if you don't believe in it, then I'm a little bit worried. But if as I said, it doesn't need to be this real kind of, you don't need to go howl at the full moon. If you want to, fantastic. But it's just about creating that space and that setting for yourself to actually delve in and create some goals, create something that you want to work towards, and actually notice what is holding you back. And the moon is, we all have a moon sign. So we all know our star sign, right? That is the kind of one that all the astrology magazines and all the things, that is what they all use. But we also have our rising sign and our moon sign. And I'm not going to go into them apart from the moon signs. The moon sign is our more internal world. It's the emotions, it's the feelings, it's our desires, it's our intuition. And because our emotions are so fluid, it is that very, as water, we know that the tides are affected by the moon. It's the same within us. It's our internal world. It's our inner belief system. It's our it's our subconscious and what's kind of going on below the surface and that inner world. And this is why it's so beautiful to work with the moon, because it's kind of uncovering those unconscious or subconscious kind of beliefs and bringing them to the surface. And we all suppress so many emotions, right? I'm speaking very generally, but the majority of us are not taught how to express our emotions, are not taught how to just claim our desires, claims our wants and needs, and speak them out loud. So this is a real beautiful opportunity for me. When I started working with the moon, it was the first time that I actually started claiming what I wanted and started writing it down. And so some techniques or things that you can do around this time is, if you're just on your own, you can use the new moon, as I said, to set the intentions. And it's also important to notice if you're doing it before the new moon, so it might be like the night before the new moon, or if you're doing it the night after the new moon, or if the new moon was during the day, are you doing it the night before, or are you doing it the night of, if that makes sense? Because again, the energies are slightly different. If you are doing it, the new moon has happened, we're already in that kind of new moon energy. That is the time for the intention setting. That's the goals. That is the building, right? Because you're already in that building phase. Once we come to the full moon, if the full moon hasn't actually peaked yet, hasn't actually happened yet, you can still use this like growing energy. And what I really like to do is really focus that at that time, just before the full moon, on gratitude, on celebration of, wow, okay, yes, I set that goal or that intention 2 weeks ago, and look at what's happened since. Be grateful to yourself that you took the steps towards that goal, not necessarily that that goal has manifested, it doesn't have to, but that you've taken the steps to getting closer to that dream. And once the full moon has peaked and you are now in that waning energy, that is the correct one, that's when you can start releasing. So if you have kind of looked into this, this is when there's a lot of like burning ceremonies. There's a lot of, everyone says, write down what you want to release and you can burn it, or you can throw it into a river, or whatever you want to do to release it. And again, it's just making sure, I'm quite pedantic about this because I really do feel the energies, hence why I do intuitive healing and energy work. But again, don't get so caught up. This is supposed to be a beautiful process. It's not meant to be stressful or add more stress to your life, right? And so then once the full moon has peaked, and you can now do that kind of releasing process, and then you can do the same the night before the new moon. So you're still in that releasing phase. So what is that last kind of like, if you're watching the video, I'm doing like wringing it out, like that last bit that you just don't want to take with you into the next phase. So maybe that's just a limiting belief that you're like, I'm done with this, enough. And you just don't want to take it with you into the next 6 months, into the next 2-week process. And it can be very, very simple. It can literally be just 15 minutes of writing down what you're grateful for. So this is kind of that celebration energy, and putting on a song, having a dance, maybe treating yourself to a dinner. And what I found is that for years I did this on my own. I did it with an online community, but not in person. And what really changed everything for me was when I actually did it with people in person. And I remember the first time I did it was in Cornwall with 2 beautiful souls, and it was magic. It was a full moon and we had a bonfire outside, and it was absolutely magic. And that actually started my self-check-in evenings and my moon evenings last year. So I was so grateful for that experience. And since then, I've kind of joined other moon evenings. I did one in London a couple of weeks ago, just before I left. And again, just being in that circle of women and having that opportunity to share and just share that space, oh wow, it's just amazing. It's amazing. So if you are interested, there's so many moon evenings and women's circles popping up now. So even if you just Google one in your area, or you can reach out and I can also direct you to some that I know of. It is an incredibly supportive space. And again, it doesn't need to be all spiritual and woo-woo. If you want it to be, absolutely, I love that. But it can just be that supportive space to be in, and that's enough sometimes, just to be in a space with other people, feeling and doing exactly the same, and potentially sharing a little bit. And it is, whether you believe in all of the other stuff, just use it as like a goal setting and a checking in, and that's enough. So many of us do that anyway. If we're building our own businesses, we'll do kind of more audits, or kind of, right, I'm not where I wanted to be, or whatever. It's exactly the same as that. But if you want to add the energy element into it, I think it's incredibly powerful. And even just sitting outside and watching the moon rise, oh my goodness, moon rises and moon sets are unbelievable. That first moment when you see a full moon, it is magic. It is absolutely magic. And I'm so grateful that I live in the mountains, so I get to watch it come up over the mountains and just illuminate the valley and the snow. Oh, it is amazing. But if you have any other questions, that is a very, very basic rundown. We also then have the eclipses, which we've just kind of gone through. They activate the north and south nodes. So if you look at your birth chart, you will find your moon sign as well, and you will find your north and south nodes. They are fascinating, and I love working with eclipses and the north and south nodes with my clients. That is one thing that I really focus on. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts when you start working with them and realizing what's coming up and what's kind of blocking you. And yeah, it is magic. So that is kind of all I wanted to say about it. It's just a very quick, short episode, just to introduce you to the moon. Hi, moon. Welcome. And just, introduce like a little simple process for you to start checking with yourself. And yeah, if you wanted to delve a little bit deeper into that and actually be a part of a community, I have the Fully Blooming Exploration Space, which is a space for people to come together to support each other. I provide 3 kind of foundation content pieces every month, so including a meditation, and just really like opening up the space for you to ask for what support you need, whether that's more meditation, or whether it's kind of a live call. There's also a live chat involved. So if you'd be interested in subscribing to that, it is a paid subscription, just to build a community and also to create some accountability. And again, it's something that I wish I'd had when I started kind of my self-exploration healing journey. And yeah, it's an interesting time that we're all going through in the world. We are really at a pivotal point, as I'm sure we can all agree. Things are crumbling around us, and to have a support system, to have other people that you know you can count on, is so helpful and healing, and actually kind of crucial at the moment. We really need community. We really need to feel that we're not on our own in what we're going through. And yeah, it is, once you're in it, you'll understand what kind of the energy and the beauty of it is. So I'm sending you so much love. If you have any questions about the moon or want to delve a little bit deeper, I can either answer them or direct you to other resources. And yeah, I'm sending you all so much love, and thank you for listening. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching another episode of Fully Blooming. If you're feeling inspired and motivated, please share with anyone you think may benefit from this video, and comment below if you have any ideas, suggestions, or comments about future episodes that you'd like to know about. Thank you so much for your support, and see you at the next episode.